typically tasked for assisting them with doing so. Identifying the techniques to better manage your time. As a paralegal, and I know I've worked as a paralegal, like I said, over 10 years, I would have several responsibilities. And if managing time was something that I didn't have a grasp on, I wouldn't have been able to keep up to par with what I was asked to do. So I know time management is extremely important. So we'll talk about that, but we'll also talk about stress management. Working in the legal industry is extremely stressful. Lawyers are known to be one of the most stressed out individuals. Of course, paralegals are not, there's typically no surveys done with paralegals because we're usually kind of grouped in with attorneys or grouped in with legal secretaries, but being a paralegal is extremely stressful also. So if you don't handle your stress, you're also going to be limited in your career and how far you can go, and then also with your engagement with clients, opposing counsel, and different individuals that you work with. And then we'll talk about the difference between positive and negative stress. Some stress is positive because it activates you to be able to work more effectively. It gives you, that additional push or that additional adrenaline that's needed in certain situations. So we're going to talk about problem solving with customers. Keep in mind we're talking about customer relations, how you as a paralegal can set yourself apart. One way, again, is you can consider yourself like the PR person for the firm or the client relations person for the firm. And so these are some key areas where you can focus in on to be able to hone those particular skills. First, you want to determine whether the situation is a disagreement or a true conflict of interest. Sometimes clients are complaining because they just want to complain. Sometimes they have a true issue, like let's say, for instance, they're wanting to know, been sending frequent letters and emails to a firm, and they haven't received any responses. That's a true issue. That's a problem. So how is that particular issue going to be addressed? There may be other issues that come up that are not really a big deal, but have to be addressed so that they don't grow into a bigger problem. Then you want to analyze your interest and the customer's interest. Now, this is extremely important. The reason why it's important, attorneys are known to have a lack of communication with their clients. It's known as one of those areas that lead to lawsuits, malpractice suits. It also leads to complaints to the bar. Now, where that stems from, in my opinion, of course there's different reasons why, that could be. But in my opinion, it's because lawyers and legal staff are trained to be able to provide legal services. That means when a client comes in, and let's say, for instance, they are filing a lawsuit because they slip and fell at a grocery store. Well, when they come into the office, an attorney has his legal hat on. Well, how do I create a complaint or argue this case in line with the different law so I can win it? That a lot of times does not take into consideration the client in any way, because at the end of the day, it's not the client that is going to determine whether the case is won or not. So when analyzing, and you as a paralegal may also get into that same mindset where it's just doing the documents, doing the legal research, and you're not taking the customer's interest into consideration. But that's extremely important. You have to be able to communicate with them, take into consideration what their needs are in relation to that particular case as you are working it. And then also brainstorm solutions and generate ideas together. Work with the client. It's actually a model rule. A lot of paralegals don't even know this. I think some attorneys may not, even though they're supposed to know this, don't actually adhere to this. But when a client comes to a firm to solve a legal problem, they're coming to the firm because the attorneys have legal expertise, but that does not mean that they're not supposed to have any type of input into how their case is being handled. So being able to work with them collaboratively to solve their problems, that means communicating with them. Having those client relation skills and those customer relation skills actually is not just good business, because if you work at an organization, let's say for a bank, you get training on that. It's like that's number one. You always hear the client's right, the customer's always right, and that's how they operate. And so keeping that at the focal point of how to interact with clients and also how to work cases is actually not just good business, it's actually a requirement, it's a model rule of professional conduct for attorneys, and you as a paralegal also have to adhere to those particular rules also. Now, in steps, when you are having an issue with a client, you want to be able to determine what's something that needs to be handled then, something that can be put off, something that you can deal with, or something that needs to be delegated to the attorney. Again, attorneys rely on paralegals for a lot. They delegate a lot. And again, as I mentioned before, some paralegals are more proficient in certain practice areas than attorneys are, and some attorneys know this. That means that they don't want you to come to, they don't want, first of all, to deal with client problems that are stemming from issues that you're responsible for. And also, if there is a problem that comes up, in some situations they want you to deal with it. So having those good client relation skills is important to be able to resolve issues when they come up with clients. Because again, this is one of those most frequent reasons for filings of malpractice, legal malpractice suits and complaints to the bar. Those can lead to attorneys getting suspended and fined. So it's extremely important to be able to deal with those issues with clients before they erupt into those particular scenarios. Now, I'm just going to briefly touch on this, just the price of service. Of course, you have no control over that. But at the end of the day, the better you do your job, the lower costs are to clients. And then at the end of the day, when the firm is determining whether they're going to give out promotions and things of that nature, then they will be in a position to be able to do so because they're spending less on services to clients, meaning you're doing your job better. The way to be able to do your job better is to work more efficiently with clients and to be able to have good problem-solving skills, time management skills. Now, in order to be a great client relations individual or client relations person, you have to be accessible. I mentioned again about that communication piece. That's being accessible. That means when a client is sending emails and letters, you're responding to those, not ignoring it, not being so focused on your job and getting briefs done and research documents that you forget that there is a client. And even if you're not in a position where you work with clients, customers or people that are coming into the firm to have their legal issues solved, you still have a client who it may be your client, may be your firm, really. Let's say you're in a position where you're a paralegal manager, where your client, because they put you in a position to oversee other paralegals, so your client is the firm overall. Well, what does that mean about being accessible? That means when your subordinates come to you, you're accessible to be able to deal with their issues. Ownership, owning a file, owning your job, not passing the buck. Know your policies, know your company's policies, but what's also extremely important, not only to know your organization's policies, but also, this is extremely important when we're talking about paralegal leadership, paralegal dedication. What is extremely important is for you to know your state bar's rules of professional conduct. Not just if you're part of a paralegal association, what those rules are, but knowing what your state bar's rules of professional conduct are. Some attorneys may not adhere to certain things, but how much more valuable would you be that you knew of a rule that maybe you or your firm is not even complying with, and you can take that to someone and say, hey, you know what, we're not doing this, we're not communicating with clients, there's no time built in to the workday to be able to assess this thing, but this is extremely important. And just taking that initiative to be able to do that, taking ownership and knowing policies, and then being able to promote effective problem solving in the efficient manner. That means, again, if you're taking ownership and you see that there's a problem, and I've been in positions where I've seen issues and also issues that were just waiting to happen, where I would, at some instances, of course, you have to assess your leadership and how the best way to approach this, but approach someone in management and bring it to them and say, hey, you know what, we're creating files this way, and actually there's a court rule that just got updated that we're not in compliance with. coming up with a solution and bringing it to someone in management before there is a fine or something that comes down the pipe because you all are not, your company overall or your organization overall is not adhering to some particular practices. Now, how do you improve your time management skill? That's extremely important. You can be great at client relations and talking to clients and problem solving, but if you can't manage your time, you're not going to get your work done. So you're not going to go as far as your career as you could go, because if you're in a firm, and most companies have productivity goals, even if they don't have billable hour quotas, you're not there. You may not even be in your position long. You may not be, if you're in your company long, you're going to stay stagnant. So you have to be able to time manage effectively to be able to get everything done. But also it's important not just being able to get your job done. Again, the purpose of this whole session is talking about paralegal mastery. How do you master the paralegal career? How do you master your career? And this is one of those fundamentals that allows you to do so. Manage how to effectively manage your time. So you want to ask yourself some questions. What do I want, or what do I need that I'm not currently doing? Ask yourself that. If you're having issues finishing tasks, if you're having issues being able to meet goals, then it's time for a self-assessment. It's time for a job assessment. It's time for a career assessment. Let's say you're not in your career where you want to be. Then you can start asking yourself some questions. What's hindering me from being able to be where I want to be? What do you want? Or what do you need that you currently are not doing? What do I want or need to complete that has not yet been completed? What do I want or need to start that has not yet been started? And what do I want or need to say that I'm not saying? So in a nutshell, what are all these questions getting at the heart of? They're allowing you to step back and say, okay, there's a problem. There's an issue. I'm not getting this done. I'm not completing it successfully. I'm not in where I want to be in my career. So let me ask myself some questions. Where do I want to be in my career? What do I need to complete that? Do I need a paralegal certification? Do I need to be more active in more organization as far as pro bono work or committees that are at work or paralegal associations? What do I need? What do I want or need to start that has not started yet? That could be job related or that could be career related. I'll give two examples where it's job related. You may be in a position, and most likely you are, because paralegals are typically tasked with so many different responsibilities where you have so much to do. And that, if you don't know how to effectively manage your schedule, some things that are important are not getting done. It's like this juggling act. So when you're asking yourself, what do I want or need to start, it's about mapping out your day, week, month, or whatever, and determining what needs to be done first. Or let's say you keep putting something off. You keep putting a big project off. Then asking yourself then this question will allow you to zone in and say, okay, you know what? I keep putting this big project off. This is something that I need to start. Or let's talk about your career. Let's say in your career, because again, keep in mind that paralegals just don't work in traditional roles. I gave an example before where a paralegal was like a vice president at like a major corporation. Some companies require a bachelor's degree in order to even apply for certain positions. So if you know that let's say you know that you're really good at, like, let's say currency or something of that nature, but you have those legal skills and you love the legal field, well, you may want to work in a bank, but you may feel like you don't have what's necessary to be able to do so. Well, start. You have keyed in on something to say, okay, this is where I want to go in my career, but I can't get there because I don't have this. Well, you need a degree. We'll go back to school. And I know it sounds easier said than done, but there are so many different, you have online programs, online degrees. I mean, I worked, and I can, speak from experience. And I was a single mother. My daughter just started college like last week. And I put myself through school. Again, when I mentioned the different degrees, I have the bachelor's, the 2 masters. Those just didn't trickle down to me from the sky. I worked on those, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. I mixed the online courses. I took breaks here. I just did what was necessary in order for me to be able to reach that goal, but I know where I wanted to go. I asked myself those questions. Where do I want to go in my career? What do I need? And I determined what I needed, and I did what was necessary to get there. It wasn't easy, but I got there. And so you have to ask yourself that, what do I need? If you need the degree, and don't allow yourself to be discouraged. You know, they say if you can't do that, it's not enough time, you can do it. If you put your mind to it, if you put a plan in place, you can get there. It takes discipline and hard work, but you most definitely can get there. There's so many different options. There's community colleges. There's the online programs. You know, a lot of companies and organizations have tuition reimbursement. So if tuition is a problem, there may be some assistance there, grants, but there's a lot of resources there. So, you know, at the end of this session, if, getting that bachelor's degree, our program does not offer degrees. They're just usually typically courses on specific areas. But if you're looking about getting a degree or something and you need just kind of like a little bit of push, I mean, I would love, like I said, I was a single parent. I know how difficult it is, even if you're not in the same position I was, if you want to go back to school, because I think it's extremely necessary for paralegals to be able to set themselves apart. And if you want, and you need that bachelor's, if you need it or want it or both, and you need that extra push or some assistance as far as, locating financial resources, schools that would kind of meet your needs, feel free. I'm going to give you my email address at the end, and reach out to me and I'll help you, because that's what Paralegal Master is all about. Master your paralegal career. Determine where you want to be. Put what's necessary in place after you've asked yourself some specific questions on how you can get there. Also in your job, determine where you want to be. Determine what needs to be done if you're not finishing specific functions. Ask yourself some questions. Are you not starting projects? Are you not balancing your time effectively? And then from there, once you ask yourself those questions, you'll be able to either yourself determine what's necessary, or you can reach out and get some assistance with from someone, and hopefully in these paralegal mastery sessions, that's the purpose, is to be able to have different professionals be able to provide resources and information on some specific areas that can help you, along that particular path. Now, again, time management is extremely important, because I mentioned that degree or whatever it is you want to do. You want to be a part of a paralegal association, leadership, and, you may have children, a spouse, other obligations where you may not feel like you have the time to do so, but you really want to achieve those particular goals. A must is to be able to manage your time. So here's some time management tips that you can use, and I'll send these slides out afterwards. Know your purpose. What is your purpose? Is your purpose just to go to work every day and clock in and clock out so you can collect a paycheck? Because if that is, then, paralegal mastery is not going to be for you. Paralegal mastery is about you mastering your paralegal career, not by being mediocre. So know your purpose. What is your purpose? What is your purpose at your company? What is your purpose in your career? But also, what is your purpose? Because what I've learned in my experience, if your career and your personal life is out of balance, it seems to you will be hindered. So know your purpose. This overall, know your purpose, job, career, your life. Where do you want to go? Keep your time in perspective. Map your day out. Map out your work week. Map out your month. Map out your year. I write blog posts, and a lot of times if you read them, it'll be the middle of the year, and I'll start talking about New Year's resolutions. The reason why I do that is because you have to keep time. That's about keeping time in perspective. You don't get to January or December 31st or January 1st and start saying, okay, this is my New Year's resolution. This is what I want to do. A lot of times you have to map that stuff out. And after you map it out, you have to keep it in your mind as far as time checks. If you said that that year you want to, let's say, be the president of a paralegal association, and there's some specific steps that you need to take to be able to do so, well, 2 months down the line, do a progress check. Where are you in relation to meeting those short-term goals to meet the long-term goal? So you have to keep time in perspective, but as it relates to your job, keep time in perspective is you don't want to wait to 1 p.m., your day ends at 3 to start going over your to-do list to see if you did everything you need to do. You have to do periodic checks in your day to make sure that you are on task with being able to complete whatever you need to complete. If you're not, then you know at that particular time, early on in the day, that you need to make some adjustments. Plan ahead. As you know, as I mentioned with those New Year's resolutions, if it's August 31st and you know you want to start school in a degree program in December, or let's say you want to be a leader of a paralegal association, or if it's something else you want to do, then plan ahead so that you can, because a lot of times there's some preliminary stuff that needs to be completed before you can start certain things. So if you wait until, okay, I want to start this particular program, task, job responsibility, whatever it is, on this date, and you wait to that date, and then come to find out, you know what, I need this, I need this, I need this. Well, you can't start. Then you're postponed because you don't have what you need. So that's where planning ahead comes in. Set priorities. This relates to your job and your career overall. If attorney is going to court that day and he says, I need this, and then you have, let's say, your paralegal, that manager or your manager come to you and say, I need a report. Well, what's more important? The attorney has a court hearing that day, and it might be hard to be able to, and also the dynamics of your organization, your firm, may make it really difficult for you to be able to determine, well, what do I do? My manager is asking me for this report, which she says she needs right now, but I know the attorney has to go to court today. You can't do both. You have to set priorities and break. Once you do that, you can break a project into smaller pieces. That goes into that planning ahead. If there's preliminary things that need to be done before the bigger project can be completed, then you have to break it down into smaller pieces. But also, when you break things down into smaller pieces, what it also allows you to do is not to become overwhelmed. If you have a lot of tasks, if you have a huge project that you're working on, it can just be overwhelming, whether that be completing a degree, whether that be completing a huge project that you're working on at work. And just the thought of doing it creates procrastination. So if you break it down into smaller pieces, it makes it more palatable, and you can get it completed successfully without being stopped or stagnated by the sheer volume of what it is that you are accomplishing to complete. And then just pace yourself. Pace yourself, give yourself enough time to complete whatever it is, job responsibilities or career goals. And as I mentioned with that procrastination, it's you putting something off, and it could stem from different things. But again, a lot of times it comes from something being so overwhelming that you keep putting it off, or something that you don't like to do. So you put what you don't like to do at the end, or something that's difficult at the end, let's say, of a day or a week or whatever, or just putting it off, period, and it never gets done. You never start it because you don't want to do the task. You're making the project too big, convincing yourself of defeat. This can be convincing. This is important. So I want to focus on the convincing yourself of defeat, because, again, keeping in mind that we're talking about paralegal mastery, mastering your paralegal career, mastering your job. Convincing yourself of defeat is, first of all, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're telling, you know what, I can never do that. I can never get my degree. I can never be the manager. I can never get promoted. I can never do that task. I can never do this task because I wasn't trained to be able to do this. So you're convincing yourself of defeat, and a lot of times that's a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're convincing yourself. It's kind of like an attorney, and so just how this will look and why this is so counterproductive. It's like an attorney taking a case and knowing it's going to go to trial, but before even trial starts, I'm not going to win this. The opponent's too big. They have all these good attorneys. It's only me. My firm is not this big. Well, wow, they have this attorney. He beat this company. I'm not going to win this case. It's like, who would hire that attorney? That's what it looks like when you do that to yourself. Who wants that type of attorney? You go to the attorney because you want someone that's going to win. You don't want someone that's convincing themselves that they can't do it, they can't win the case. And that's what that looks like when you do that to yourself in your job and in your career. You're telling yourself you can't win. And so that has to go. Rationalizing away, explaining why you keep putting something off, and feeding poor self-esteem. You know, this typically is not discussed in careers, but when you want to develop yourself in your career, you have to deal with those self-defeating ideas, that negative, if you've ever heard of the term of negative mental chatter, those things that we tell ourselves, you know, and it creates a poor self-esteem. It could be anything. Poor self-esteem does not have to be, you know, a lot of times people think of things like body image and you know, appearance and things of that nature, but poor self-esteem can come from you may not feel like you're up to par for a particular task, job, whatever it may be. And the negative talk and convincing yourself of defeat feeds into that, and it actually creates that reality for yourself. So that feeds in the procrastination of starting a task, starting a career goal, because you're feeding that particular element, and that procrastination it's just a never-ending cycle. It just goes on and on and on and on. So in order to be able to effectively time manage, you have to feed positive self-esteem. I can do this. So-and-so did it. I can do this. I have what's necessary. No, I don't have those particular skills, but I can learn them. No, I don't have the money to be able to get a degree from Harvard. But you know what? I can go and get a degree from a community college. I can go and take courses that my firm offers and get proficient in this particular area. I can take free online courses through different associations. So feeding positive self-esteem defeats procrastination, and it allows you to master your paralegal career and to be successful. Now, these are some activities to help become more organized, because organization is a key component to time management and also to stress and being able to deal with your stress. Create a monthly schedule. Create a file for each item on your schedule. But I would even say create a weekly schedule, because I've worked in roles before where a monthly schedule, it would have looked like a binder. And so a weekly schedule may be more manageable than a monthly schedule. And then create a folder, whether that be an electronic folder in your, I know Outlook has folders that you can create. You can create folders in your Outlook, or if, you know, physical folders work better for you, you can do that for each item that's on your schedule. Use technology. Technology, I mentioned before, of how important technology is and being proficient in it. Use it to your benefit. That's why technology is created, to make tasks easier. Use it to be able to organize yourself, organize your day, organize your work, and be able to do your work more effectively. Organize your work area. Have an area of your desk. If your desk has just no rhyme or reason, you have files over here, completed files mixed in with the in-progress files, and if you work in different practice areas, you have the bankruptcy files mixed with your civil litigation files. It's a disaster. You can't find what you're looking for. If an attorney or someone comes to you and asks you for a file, it takes you about an hour. It doesn't look good. It's counterproductive. It wastes time. So organize your work days, your work area, along with your work day and week and month, so that you can locate what you need quickly. Manage your communications, your emails, phones, things. I worked in positions before where certain times of the day were blocked off for responding to voicemails and emails. That may work for you, it may not, but what it allows you to do is not get distracted. If you're working on creating some, whatever it is, a report, a document, you're doing some legal research, whatever it is you're doing, and you're getting, because I know in Outlook, and probably in other email application systems, there's pop-ups that come up just in the side of your screen or in the middle of the screen, however you configure it. And so you may be working on something and something pops up and you're distracted. You know, you start responding to that, now you're off track, you got to get in the zone all over again. So you may want to just block off certain parts of your day where you respond to emails and phone calls, if that is something that you're able to do, because some, you know, positions you can't do that. You have to, you know, respond quickly, or, you know, always answer the phone if that's, you know, procedure in place at your particular organization. But if that's something that may work for you, you can implement that because it will help you to be able to finish your jobs in quicker, easier, because you're not interrupted, and it helps you to organize your day. Now, stress is a big, big issue. Again, there's statistics about attorneys as far as alcohol abuse, drug abuse. There's no statistics for paralegals, but we deal with the same issues that attorneys deal with. We're stressed, and some may even say more because the attorney is coming down on some paralegals and put a lot of pressure on them in some positions. And so that can be extremely stressful. That leads to some very serious issues. So when we're talking about stress, it's not just, oh, okay, just stress, manage your stress. It's serious. Some people have strokes, heart attacks, start abusing drugs and alcohol, and it's known that attorneys do. They have different special resources available to them through their bar associations because it is something that is very prevalent. So in order to avoid those things, you have to understand stress. When it's unregulated and uncontrolled and ignored, it can be harmful to you, your health, your job, because you're not as productive, and your overall well-being. It is extremely important to be able to deal with that, assess it. Back in the few slides back when those questions were posed as far as what do you need to start. That's the same type of questions can be asked in order to determine your stress level. What is it that's stressing me? What causes me stress? What is triggering my stress? Could it be, reports, every Monday are due, so that's extremely stressful for you. Well, if the report is due on Monday, that's a stressor for you, then you can maybe put things in place to where you start preparing that report, on Thursday, Friday, or something, so that it's not so stressful, but asking yourself those questions so you can assess what it is that's causing you stress, so you can put things in place to be able to combat it. Now also, I don't know if this will ever be a problem, but too little stress can lead to apathy, fatigue, and illness. Typically in a legal role, it's typically that you're going to have too much stress. The pressure to be able to complete job functions, the pressure to perform. That's typically going to be the issue of having too much stress. So having too little stress, I don't know if that's, will be applicable, but, again, it can lead to apathy, fatigue, and illness. Now the key is just to be able to balance your work, balance your career, balance your personal and your career so that you can keep your stress in check. And these are just some ways to be able to reduce stress. First, the causes are, the lack of control. As a paralegal, sometimes you may not feel like you're in control of your workload, so that can cause a lot of stress because it's pretty much like you're handed work and it's like, here, do it. You may not feel like you're in control of your career or your job because you may feel like you've hit the ceiling, you are limited in what you can do. That may be time for you to assess other areas for you to go into, and then to also look into non-traditional roles that you may not think of as a paralegal. E-discovery is huge. There's other areas that are expanding to legal professionals. Then just the lack of confidence or self-esteem. Again, we talked about those self-fulfilling prophecies, or those, that negative self-talk that we do where we defeat ourselves, and just the how counterproductive that is and what that looks like, when those things are done. So being able to do things to build your self-esteem and your career overall, taking some courses, become more proficient. If you don't feel like you're skilled, let's say with technology. I've heard some people, I'm not really good with technology. I can't do that because I don't know how to use it. There's a lot of courses that you can take. Some of them are free, and get more proficient. So that will help build your self-esteem about the usage and your ability to effectively use technology. And these are just some ways to reduce stress. This is easier said than done. Don't worry. Of course, if you're going to work, you have a lot of things on your plate. But put things into place where you're dealing with it. You're dealing with it. You're doing the best that you can. So you have control. You're putting control back into putting control back into your job, back into your career by putting some simple things into place, and maybe some not so simple things into place for you to be able to deal with things that may be causing you a lot of stress. Setting goals, short-term and long-term goals, breaking projects down and goals into bite-sized pieces so they're not overwhelming and they don't lead to procrastination. And then finish unfinished business. That can cause a huge amount of stress. And that's that cycle of procrastination, that if something needs to be done, you put it off, then now it comes up on you. There's a deadline that has to be met. You only have one day to do it because you put it off. Now you're stressed. So finish unfinished business. So that can be one less thing that you have to stress about. Resolve any conflicts, whether that be, there's always the office politics that are going on, which stems from a variety of different things. And those can lead to some real conflicts. I spoke before about dealing with the issues with customers, but sometimes it's not customers. Sometimes it's coworkers. Sometimes it's management. Sometimes it's subordinates. And those can lead to some real conflicts that are extremely stressful. And if that is the case, then sometimes you may need an unbiased third party, just from working in large organizations and kind of seeing the dynamics. My rule was not to get involved. If someone comes to me, she said or he said, oh my God, can you believe this? I'm like, really? Okay, I won't get involved in it, because a lot of times that pulls you into it. But so that when you may be dealing with a conflict, or I would suggest, based off of past experience, is not, experience with individuals, telling this person, and just how office politics works, is not to go to coworkers with conflicts, even if you're looking for some advice. A lot of companies have advice lines. If you're part of a paralegal association, rely on those, your colleagues there in your paralegal associations, others that may know about your industry or how it is to work in a legal organization that are not tied to it, because that can turn into a big mess. And so, typically resolving conflicts may involve getting the advice of an unbiased third party, because they're real. And when talking about stress, that can cause an extreme amount of stress. So it's important to be able to effectively deal with those particular issues, if and when they crop up. You can manage your stress by, paying attention to yourself. Are you breathing hard? Are you breathing, having short breaths? A lot of times that indicates stress, shallow breath. Pay attention to yourself. How are you breathing? Take deep breaths throughout the day. Stretch. Are you tensing up, at certain times of the day or whatever, because a deadline is approaching? Pay attention to yourself, so you'll know how stress is affecting you, so you can know, what you need to do to be able to manage it effectively. Don't try to control everything. You may, again, I mentioned before with resolving conflict, you may need to go to someone else. You may need to go to an outside party. I would use discretion, but you may need to rely on someone else to be able to help you deal with certain things. Even if it is mapping out career, there's career professionals. Next month we're going to have Paramjeet Molly. She's going to speak. She's available. She's pretty. She's very open as far as speaking with people and providing information, but also I plan on having other speakers in the future. So you can also reach out to them and ask questions, if you need help as far as developing your career, particular practice area, developing a certain skill, whatever it is. Alter your lifestyle, if you need to be able to reduce stress, change your thinking, getting rid of those self-defeating mental chatter and talk. I can't do this. I can't do this job. I can't accomplish this goal. You can do it. You can do it. And I'm saying that with conviction, because I keep mentioning this again, because I know, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. If you're a single parent, if you're a parent, if you're taking care of an elder adult, if you're single, if you're part of a paralegal association, if you have a lot of obligations, you may think you can't accomplish certain things. And I can just say from experience, you can. It's just a matter of, again, discipline and time management. Create an outlet. when you have conflicts that maybe go on at work, if you have stress, because of how much work you have, whatever the stress may be coming from, you need an outlet. That's important, because if you don't have an outlet that you create, the outlet will be created for you. That means that, let's say, I'll give 2 examples. Let's say you have so much work. You're just overwhelmed, and it's constant. It's constant. It's constant. One outlet could be that you get sick, because your body has to have some way to release. It gets sick. It has to shut itself down, because it has to protect itself. That's how the body is built. So it's going to shut down because it has been under so much stress. Or you lash out. You are so stressed out that it's like you don't mean to be that way, but it's like you just lash out. Somebody comes to your short. I don't know. Somebody asks you a simple question. I don't know. Go ask so-and-so, because you're just so stressed out. Or, it could be that your outlet is drinking or alcohol. These are things that are not typically talked about here, but they're real. They're real issues, and nobody becomes an alcoholic overnight. No one becomes a drug addict because they choose to do so or overnight. It's because they are managing. Some people become so because they're partiers and whatever the case may be. But for a lot of, and I know for legal professionals, I know attorneys, because they have statistics of this, they become like that, whether it's prescription drugs, whatever it is. It's over time. It's medicating stress. And so an outlet, that's an outlet, but it's a negative one. But there can be positive outlets like exercising, meditation, massages, movies, walking, whatever, an activity that you enjoy doing. That's an outlet at the end of the day that okay, you know what, I had a horrible day, it's stressful, but you're looking forward to whatever it is, a cooking class or yoga, Pilates, whatever. But you have to create an outlet. That's important, because if you do not create an outlet, understand that it will be created for you, whether that be lashing out, the drugs, the alcohol, short-tempered, whatever. So you have to create that for yourself. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Now, again, this session, if you join late, Paramjeet Molly, she's going to be doing the session next month. If you register for this one, you can register for that one for free. It's going to be recorded. So if you can't log in at the time, it's scheduled for possibly maybe on a weekend or a time that may be convenient. But again, if you can't log in at that time, then it will be recorded, so you can access that. And then there'll also be more sessions in the future. So if you have any suggestions as far as paralegal mastery, mastering your paralegal career, skills, whatever it may be, feel free. I'm going to type in my email address here, and you can reach out to me and provide any suggestions that you have on some future sessions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this particular session up. If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat box, and I'll get to as many as I can.